It seems to be pretty common knowledge that octo is used to mean 8. In fact, this 8 related prefix comes from the Latin octo, their word for 8. We see this with things like octagon, which is an 8-sided shape, and octopus, which is an 8-tentacled sea creature, so it only makes sense that the 8th month in the year would have this in its name too, being called something like, oh, I don't know, October maybe? Yeah, October seems like a pretty decent name to call the 8th month. Except we have a slight issue, the 8th month isn't called October, it's called August. But we do have a month named October, but it's the 10th month of the year, not the 8th. So how on earth did we end up in this situation where the 10th month of our year is named after 8? Well, for this odd quirky language we have the Romans to thank. The Romans used a variety of calendar systems. The one we need to look into, however, is the Roman 10-month calendar, as it's the earliest calendar system we have evidence for in Rome. This calendar doesn't have 12 months like the one we use now, it only had 10 months and started in March as opposed to January. In this format we can clearly see that October was the 8th month in the year, hence why it was called October. This also clears up the names for some other months too. I focus on October, but the names of September, November and December are now out of place too, with these names too coming from the Latin names for 7, 9 and 10, which makes no sense now but made much more sense with a 10-month calendar. It's not even like the names we use now for these months are adaptations of their Latin names. These are the exact same names for these months that the Romans used too. This convention of naming months after their names even applied to July and August in the Roman calendar, with these two months at the time being called Quintilis and Sextilis, coming from the Latin names for 5 and 6. Of course these names are no longer used, but more on that a tad later. As I said, this Roman calendar went from March, which they called Malatius, to December. So what was going on with the time we now have as January and February? Well, these winter days were not actually assigned a month and therefore had no names. Something without a name is literally what my nightmares look like. Traditionally, it's believed that this 10-month calendar was created by the first king of Rome, Romulus. It was his successor, Numa Pompilius, that added 2 extra months to the start of the year, these being dubbed Januarius and Februarius. With these 2 added months, not only is our modern calendar starting to take shape, but it also meant that the months named after numbers were no longer in the correct position of the year. Despite this, these names for the months stuck around. I guess if they did change, our October would now be December, and our December would be called something like Duodecember. With this, however, we had the full 12-month Roman calendar: Januarius, Februarius, Malatius, Aprilus, Maius, Junius, Quintilis, Sextilis, September, October, November and December. As I'm sure you can see for yourself, the names of the months now in the English language are very reminiscent of the names the Romans used, with the last 4 being identical. It's from these Latin names where we get their English language names. We've already covered September to December, so let's start in a more logical place this time, at the start of the year. January to June seem to all be more or less named after deities, with January being named after Janus. With Janus being the Roman god of doorways and beginnings, it makes sense for the first month to be named after the god of beginnings, as January is the beginning of the year. February is not named after a deity, but a festival that takes place on the 15th of that month, the festival being called Februa. March, as we stated, was the first month of the year in the original 10-month calendar, and is named after the Roman god of war Mars. It's believed this month was named after the god of war, as March would have been the start of the Roman campaigning season. April is a month name that isn't too clear to us. Some believe it's the month of Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love and beauty, but this one we don't seem to be as sure about, it would seem. May is Maya's month, with Maya yet again being another goddess of Roman mythology, believed to be the goddess of spring, which once again makes sense as May is a spring month. And June is named after Juno, the wife of Jupiter and the goddess of marriage and childbirth. So what about July and August? If you noticed, these 2 months had names that sounded nothing like this in the Roman calendar, with these 2 being called Quintilis and Sextilis, which, as we mentioned earlier, reference their placement in the year. These 2 months aren't now named after gods, Roman traditions, or even numbers. July and August come from Julius Caesar and Emperor Augustus respectively. Having these months named after them come from the fact that these 2 Roman rulers helped so much with the formation of the calendar as we see it today. Caesar himself formed his own calendar, which became known as the Julian Calendar, which maintained the same months as the previous Roman calendar but moved some days around. The Julian Calendar was the foundation to the calendar that is used pretty much everywhere around the world today, the Gregorian Calendar, named after Pope Gregory XIII. There was, however, one other change Julius made with the Julian calendar, and that was the eradication of a month. Yes, in the past we had 13 months, not 12. Well, sometimes we had 13 months. Mercedonius and Intercalaris was a leap month added between February and March every few years to keep the solar cycle in line. The name Intercalaris means intercalendar, and its other name Mercedonius comes from the Latin word for wages, as it was around this time of year that workers would get paid. Like I said, however, this additional month was completely removed from the calendar when Julius Caesar brought in his own calendar. calendar. The months of the year play a large role in our lives. We associate them with holidays, birthdays, certain weathers, but they are man-made concepts from over 1,000 years ago, and that shows in their names, from being named after gods and traditions to being named after numbers which make no sense anymore in relation to their placement in the year, like we see in the name of the month we started this video with, October, the 10th month named after the number 8. Name Explained depends on awesome people like yourself to donate just a small amount a month to help keep the channel running. The small amount of $2 a month not only helps out in a massive way, but gets you weekly Patreon exclusive rewards and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you.